Welcome back, everyone. Now, I have the feeling that we've been here together for days already, but in fact, we're not even at the end of day one. And there's still an extremely inspiring presentation to go. Only 45 minutes ago, Rob McConnell, our Rob, I would say, he challenged us. He challenged us all to think about what can we learn from the crisis we're in. And actually, learning is what we, as humans, do all our life. From the moment we are born, we learn. We have good moments in life, and we have bad moments in life. But what is a similarity between the two is that we learn from every experience that we have. And today has been a learning experience as well. Many learning experiences, actually. In the plenary sessions, in the breakout sessions, you get inspired by people, you shared your own experiences, you learn from it. But the big question now is, how can you use the learning to be more successful and improve your fleet management performance? How can you focus in a way that you use your learnings and that you promise what you deliver? I'm very happy that with the support of TSS, we were able to invite Robert Swan. An interesting fact is that Louis Huize, the managing director of TSS International, actually joined Robert on his expedition to Antarctica in 2017. Because as you might know, and otherwise you will hear later more about it, Robert Swan is the first person that ever crossed both North Pole and South Pole. And focus, like we just described, focus is for Rob an extremely important topic. But not only focus, it's also trust. Trust in his own abilities, trust in other people, collaboration with other people, and belief, a strong belief that you can do what you want to deliver, that you can do what you want to achieve. So for Rob, trust, belief, collaboration is a way of life. For Rob, it's actually life critical, because without that, he would probably not come home from one of his trips to one of the poles. So I'm very happy that Rob is here. Rob, I would normally say a extremely good morning, because you live in California, but I believe at the moment you are in the UK.
That's correct.
Very good to see. So a warm welcome to you, Robert. I'm very happy that you're here. Well, we have many conversations before, so I'm glad that finally you said, yeah, let me do it. I want to be there at the Fleet Forum conference and speak to people. So, but maybe before you deliver your presentation, today we talked about the COVID crisis and what does it mean for people? So how did that impact you?
Well, my business completely collapsed, Paul, actually. Just went from being an international public speaker to no international and no public speaking. So it was a bit of a shock to begin with, but I learned an awful lot and have formatted my business and come back strong in lots of different areas. So I learned a lot and I'm putting that into action now.
Great. I'm great to hear. And like we just said, learning is a big thing and it's important in your life as well. So I can't wait to hear from you, your experiences, and what it means for you, and how did you learn from it to be the person you are now. Are we happy?
Well, thank you very much indeed.
The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Well, ladies and gentlemen listening today, I'm delighted to come and tell you a story. And it's a story really based on personal leadership. Because quite honestly, if we are not leading ourselves as best we possibly can, how can other people take us seriously? And I know that you're on an extremely important journey of your own towards greening your fleets. And I'm going to talk about possibly why that's important and just tell you a story about what's possible to achieve together. So this began for me at the age of 11. This photograph shows me last time I had a full head of hair, last time I was properly dressed perhaps, but I saw a film when I was 11 about the real explorers who went to the South Pole and the North Pole. And I made a commitment that one day I would become the first person in history to walk to both poles. Everybody laughed at me. They still laugh at me. But in between, we achieved that mission. To begin with, on leaving university, I decided to go and get warm before I would get really cold, and went on a bicycle on my own from Cape Town in South Africa to Cairo in Egypt. That took me 9 months on a bicycle on my own, probably a journey today that you wouldn't survive, but it was an incredible experience. And as I say, at the end of it, after being too hot, it was time to get cold. To put any journey, to put any mission into action, you've got to be committed. And it took me 7 years living in this warehouse in the East End of London on the River Thames, 5 years of people saying no to me to raise $5 million to undertake this journey to the pole. I hung on in there, trusted that it would eventually happen. I had that belief. And after 7 years of battling, we bought our own small ship, Southern Quest, and we now head south to the Antarctic continent. Once south of New Zealand, we're on our own, and ice starts to coat the vessel. And I'm thinking, seriously, why didn't I go to the Bahamas or somewhere warmer? And at last, we arrive in Antarctica, put all our equipment ashore, and then our little ship, we're 5,000 kilometers away from civilization now, Australia and New Zealand, 5,000 sea miles away. And our ship leaves 5 of us alone for 1 year. No radio communications, no internet, none of that was invented at that time. So we're on our own, no communications, and we hope that our little ship will return a year later to collect us. And in that time, we'll have reached the South Geographic Pole. 5 of us now go inside our tiny little home that we brought all the way from London. And now 5 of us wait. We wait 9.5 months inside this tiny little box. 4 months of total darkness. And this was really, really hard because I chose very strong, different characters for the team. Had I chosen all my best friends, yes, we would have raised some money, lots of it, had some great parties, but probably we would have dropped dead in the first week. So very different, strong characters, totally isolated. There's no communications. It's 5,000 kilometers back to civilization. It's dark, and we have to hold this team together. If we fail, we die. And how we did it really was to remember humor. When things get difficult and tense and people are about to get really upset, we used humor to diffuse those situations between us. We came through 9.5 very tough months. Then 3 of us lay out our equipment on the edge of the Antarctic. More people, ladies and gentlemen, at this stage in history had walked on the moon than had walked to the South Pole. We would be the first people for 75 years to follow in the footsteps of Scott, the British explorer, and Amundsen, the incredible Norwegian. No one had made that journey for 75 years. So we lay out our equipment. We have no radio, no GPS. They weren't invented. We will navigate to one building, the South Pole Scientific Station in the center of Antarctica, using the sun, a sextant, and this old watch. We have to get it right. 80 days of food and fuel, no backup, off we go. 360 pounds on each sledge, 9 hours a day, 7 days a week, 70 days in a row. It's going to be incredibly hard. I will lose 33 kilograms in body weight on this journey. It's going to be hard. We cross 5,000 crevasses. If a crevasse bridge breaks, you go through you don't come home. And Paul mentioned trust. If we don't trust each other, we're going to die. So whoever's leading chooses the route, and the others follow that route unconditionally and without debate. We cannot stop. We've got to average 20 kilometers a day. Fall below 20, we're going to run out of food, run out of fuel, we're dead in 5 days. After the great mountains, we find ourselves on the mighty polar plateau, an area the size of the United States of America, and we are the only people there. Think of that if you've ever been lonely. And beneath our feet, 16,000 feet of solid ice. 90% of all the world's ice, we're standing on it in this photo. 70% of all the world's fresh water, it's in Antarctica. And trust me, ladies and gentlemen, this is the most lethal, silent, powerful, dangerous force on Earth. If we continue, I repeat, continue to melt this ice, the world, it will not be the same as it is now. The sea level will rise by an estimated 300 meters. Game over. As we're walking now to the pole, we're hoping, because we have no communication, that our little ship, Southern Quest, left us a year earlier, will have returned to the Antarctic, to our base camp, to our 2 companions. They will unload an aeroplane. That aeroplane will take off from an iceberg, just have one chance, fly to the South Pole and look for us. And if they find us, we jump on that plane, go back to the base camp, and do something we promised to do. Picture a 23-year-old person, me, trying to raise $5 million to walk to the South Pole with no experience. Not the easiest sales pitch. And I was helped by a man I hope some of you might remember, the great Jacques Cousteau from France, perhaps the world's first environmental leader, always focused on the ocean. And he gave me credibility. He gave me his support so I could raise the money to make this expedition happen. But he said, in return, Rob, at the end of your journey, please take away all of your rubbish, all of your equipment. Just leave your footsteps in the snow of the Antarctic. Show respect to the last great wilderness left on Earth, the only place on Earth that we all own. I said, we will do that. So when we reach the pole, we'll go back to the base, load up everything onto the ship, head north to where the sun shines. That was the plan. The last few days to the pole, were we on target? One mistake with calculation of time. We could miss the pole up to 50 nautical miles. We wouldn't know where it was. We would have died. But I was with the best. Roger and Gareth navigated us 300 meters off course in 900 nautical miles. Incredible journey. That is the South Geographic Pole. And we stood there, ladies and gentlemen, and celebrated our little success, not just for us 3, but all of our supporters, the team at base camp. This was an excellent moment. We had done what people said could not be done. The longest unassisted march ever made anywhere on Earth in history. And as we were standing there, the base commander from the United States South Pole Station came out and said, sorry, Rob, bad news. Your ship, Southern Quest, was crushed by ice and sank 5 minutes ago. Frankly, just the sort of thing you want to hear when you've spoken to no one for 1 year. Most important thing for all of us is safety, and everybody's safe. But without a ship, I can't deliver on the promise that we made to Jacques Cousteau. It's 5,000 kilometers back home. There's 60 tons of equipment, no ship. I'm bankrupt. But you know something? I think if you make a commitment in life, you should deliver on it. And standing at the South Pole, I decided we'd have to finish the job. And that would mean 3 people remaining in Antarctica for another year. No one's ever paid. I would go back to civilization, find another ship, come south a year later, pick up those 3 people, clear our base camp, and do what we promised to do. I think words are easy in life. It's important to deliver on them. And we're very proud as a team that we achieved that goal. That put me in a personal debt at the age of 28 of nearly 2 million euros. And I'd never had a job. And it would take 15 years to repay that debt, but it was worth it. Walking to the South Pole changed my life, and it hurt me. My eyes changed colour in 70 days through damage. Our faces blistered out. The skin came away from our faces, terrific pain. And we didn't know why. But when we got home, NASA told us that we'd walked under the hole in the ozone layer, wait for it, the month that it was discovered. So we didn't know we were facing this. And ladies and gentlemen, to have blisters in your eyes makes you think. And without an ozone layer, nothing would grow on planet Earth. And this began my thinking to say, maybe our survival on this little planet might not be somebody else's problem. It might be mine. But first, we had to deliver on the mission. And now it's time to head to the North Pole. And I know you're all good, eminent business women and men, but, I thought, sadly, that this might pay off my debt to do the North Pole journey. It doubled the debt, but honestly, who cared? Off we go now. 8 of us, 7 different nations. And we're now going to face the Arctic Ocean. The South Pole is ice on land. The North Pole is just a frozen ocean, a frozen sea. So off we go, 700 miles, every step, away from the safety of land. And beneath our feet, 5 miles of ocean, very hard physical conditions on the surface of the Arctic Ocean. This would be our home for 56 nights in a row, 8 of us from 7 nations stuck in this tiny little tent. And we had to learn patience. It's very easy to be not so patient, especially when you're in a tight spot, jammed in with people, but we had to learn patience. Check out Daryl on the right there. Daryl would become the first American to walk to the North Pole, but look how much he really enjoyed Rupert's music. I'm just saying not much. We had to learn to be patient, such an important thing. Here's me coming in, washing, naked, from outside the tent at minus 71 degrees Celsius, just a little cold. And gentlemen, you will notice clearly that there is absolutely nothing hanging down in the center of the photograph. You will know exactly how this feels. It's cold. We are now 642 nautical miles away from the safety of land in the middle of a frozen ocean. And now disaster strikes. Over 3 days, the surface of the Arctic Ocean starts to move. After 5 days, the entire ocean has broken up beneath our feet. Now, please remember, we are beyond rescue. No planes can get to us because they can't land. We're beyond helicopter range. And this was 30 years before words such as climate change, global warming, sustainability, these words didn't exist. So we weren't saying, oh, well, this must be climate change. We were saying, great, we're dead. And we're fighting our way across this surface of the moving Arctic Ocean, terrifying stuff. This photograph was taken in the month of April. The Arctic Ocean 30 years ago was supposed to look like this in August, and we are up against it. And the only way we can survive is to think way outside what's possible. In 20 hours of trying to go north, we're still going south. So we have to now take advantage of the fact it's always daylight at the North Pole in summer. And therefore we can run 24 to 40-hour days without stopping to attack this ice. And people now become badly injured. I'm sorry to show you this picture, but we're not some survivor discovery program where you can ring up mummy and go home. Daryl, our incredibly brave American, he loses his heel from his foot to frostbite, 115 miles from the pole itself. We bandage him up, he fights on. And 12 miles from the North Pole, we get some luck. The wind changes direction, the ice cap comes together, and at last, after 56 terrible days, we've done it. And I say we, because really, ladies and gentlemen, I would probably still, knowing me, be in that warehouse talking about walking to both poles. Without our team, I would never have done this. And on this day, I vowed to myself that I would never, ever, ever walk to any pole ever again. I was done with it, and we flew a flag, which I still think is important on our planet. Went back home and was summoned by the great Jacques Cousteau. Some of you might recognize him now. He didn't say, obviously from France, well done, Robert. He said, what are you doing for the next 50 years? And I said, well, can I sit down while you tell me? And Jacques Cousteau gave me 30 years ago a 50-year mission. And he said to me, Rob, in the year 2041, the treaty that protects Antarctica for us all can stop, can be revised. It could be thrown away. We could be stupid enough to throw away the last chance we have on this planet to show people thousands of years from now that we really cared. And he said, take on this mission, Rob. We can do it, and make sure we leave Antarctica as a natural reserve land for science and peace. We've been working on that mission for 30 years, and we have another 20 to go. Even my maths tells me that. And to do that, well, I like practical missions. So we started off by taking young people to Antarctica. They, after all, will be voting in the year 2041. And we started with a mission to remove over 1,500 tons of twisted metal left in Antarctica by the former Soviet Union. This was a mighty battle. It took us 8 years. It's actually the worst thing I'll never do again. Had to form a joint cooperation with the Russian government, which, trust me, is really complicated. But we took 8 years to do it, 3 months every year. We went down there with businessmen, businesswomen, engineers, and gradually started to load up our ship. In order to get our message out to the world, I came to the great country of the Netherlands, and incredibly, with the help of your present king, such a cool guy, I was able to get a yacht sponsored, which would be our flagship for this mission in Antarctica. And of course, the yacht's name would be 2041. And that yacht would make it to Antarctica and support the cleanup operation that we were undertaking. We took down a giant ship. And please remember, when some of you are listening to our story, remember, this isn't mine, it's ours, that we only have a really small team of 4 people that pulled together all of this. And we took down the ship, we loaded it by hand. That took 4 months. There's no infrastructure in Antarctica. And supported and inspired by my mother, who, by the way, sends you all lots of love today. My mum is 105 years of age. She will be 106 years of age in October. And she inspired me as a young man on issues such as conservation and recycling. And she said to me, Robert, you can't possibly go to Antarctica, remove all that rubbish and not recycle it. And I said, Mum, we're on it. And we did. We recycled all of this 1,500 tons of rubbish, cleared the beach in the Antarctic. The penguins came ashore, but this was a turning point in my life. I realized that in order to help preserve Antarctica, I had to become businesslike. It was no good being a rubbish, garbage man. People would say, good job, Rob, but it wouldn't help preserve Antarctica. What would be to think, why would people go there to exploit it? They would go there for energy, for fossil fuels. And I thought, okay, change the game. Try and be relevant, Rob. It's very easy, for us all to think we're being relevant. But actually, sometimes we're not being so relevant. So my advice, if I might give it, is to occasionally have a little bit of a relevancy check. And I realized that I would have to become a renewable energy champion, because if we are using in the world to scale more renewable energy, no one will go to Antarctica to exploit it, because it won't make financial sense to do so. KPMG will save Antarctica, not me, if we get renewable energy to scale. So from now onwards, I try my best to become a renewable energy champion. We start our voyage on our Dutch yacht around the world on what we call the Voyage for Cleaner Energy to help that mission. We go 227,000 nautical miles around the world, showing especially young people that if renewable energy can work to power a yacht, we can use it in all kinds of different ways. Even a solar panel sail, and our engine on the yacht 2041 would be using biofuels, synthetic fuels, showing that we can do that job. And every year we take down champions to the Antarctic every year, and we've involved over 83 nations so far. Older people like myself, younger people, businesswomen, businessmen, come down to become champions on the preservation of the Antarctic, return as better leaders, more knowledge on sustainability. I've involved, actually, I'm so proud of this, over 80 women from the Middle East who often have represented their country before any man has been to the Antarctic. And those women and ladies go back to their relevant countries and be pushing hard on renewable energy and the preservation of the Antarctic. I've taken hundreds of young leaders from India, such an important nation, India, 1.4 billion people in India. And you know something, the rest of the world can't say to India, especially the West, don't do what we've already done. We've got to work with nations like India to help make sure that as they get energy, as they become more fluid, they get more things, they get more consumerism, that is powered by the best possible energy. So a lot of young people from India, same thing, a lot of young people and leaders from China. India and China are on the edge of leading our world. And I hope they'll help preserve Antarctica. And I hope that they'll help make sure that renewable energy is a big deal. What we see in Antarctica, ladies and gentlemen, is terrifying. I go every single year of my life. And every year I see more and more ice breaking off Antarctica. It's fairly simple. The North and South Pole is made of ice. And once ice starts to melt, doesn't take an awful lot of temperature change to make these things happen. I see it every year. It's terrifying. I like to take on challenges. And I thought, well, I'd like to go and help and inspire young people, especially in India. But to be relevant, to take a yacht to India would be pointless. No one would care. And sometimes being relevant is a bit painful and rather dangerous. So I spent from 2010 to 2013 on a bicycle going around India. Now, trust me, bicycling around India is much more dangerous than walking to the South Pole backwards in your underpants. This is a pretty wild place to be on a bike, but this was relevant, I thought, especially for young people in India. They wouldn't respect somebody coming in a limousine. They respected a sort of red-faced Englishman, very hot, arriving to speak at their colleges, schools, and universities. We went high up into the Himalayas, couldn't bicycle the last bit, but we went up to the source of the most incredible river, the Ganges River, and this glacier that gives water to nearly 500 million people is melting almost as fast as you can walk. Ever been thirsty? Imagine 500 million people without water. We need to listen. So across the world, around the world, in as many countries as we possibly can, we've built these little education stations running only on renewable energy. And they link to the local community. They link to the outside world with now Zoom. In the old days, it was Skype. So young people in those communities can speak to young people all over the world at different schools. And every year, we go up high into the Himalayas and bring to people who've never had electricity, we bring solar light. And this monastery, this guy could see what he was doing for the first time in 2,000 years. I think we take for granted so many things. And having traveled through Africa, you know, I know what it's like not to have all the conveniences that we all have in the countries a lot of us live in. And this young man had solar light to do his homework. I don't think he was that happy with me because he had to do it. Now he had a solar light. And after all these experiences, you know, you go back almost to where you started. And NASA hauled me in about 4 years ago and said, Rob, these colored areas in Antarctica are melting faster than even the most pessimistic scientists thought it could happen. And remember, Antarctica holds 90% of the world's ice, 70% of all the world's fresh water. And unfortunately, I made the mistake of taking my son, Barney, at the age of 23 to this meeting. And you know, we saw satellite imagery of huge, huge areas of ice breaking off from Antarctica. I don't need to tell you what this does. In the Netherlands, of course, being the experts on dealing with, you know, the onset of the ocean, of course, in our richer nations, we can build walls, we can build dikes, we can maybe hold the sea back for a while at least. But in countries like the Maldives, you know, I happen to know this family in the Maldives. You know, they had to move house, but they never did anything to deserve to move house. And I think one's got to think about that, the impact that these things not might happen, but are happening. And we came out of that meeting, my son and I, and my son said to me, Dad, you carry on as the 2041 man, but realize something, he said to me. He said, young people today, Father, are seriously upset with the state of the planet that your generation and generations before have left them. They are upset. They are angry. They're pointing fingers at industry and business. They're pointing fingers at governments. And he said to me, we have every right to feel like that. But he said, I don't think that just being frustrated and angry will get us anywhere. We don't have time to waste years just being angry. And he said, I would like to take on the challenge of taking that passion and frustration and interest of young people and turning it into solutions. We must have solutions. And I said to him, this sounds fantastic, Barney. I'm so proud of you. He said, there's only one catch, Dad. Will you please walk to the South Pole with me? And I said, no, I'm not walking to the South Pole. I've already done that. I've hung up my skis. I'm too old to do this. I'm not doing it. And he said, but what happens if we made this journey only on renewable energy? And I said, well, that's quite interesting. How would we do it? So Barney and I went to NASA, and NASA developed some incredible technology for us, where you would fill these pots with ice and snow, put the top on, and then through solar power, 6 hours later, we would have hot water. Incredible. And that technology, ladies and gentlemen, they will use on Mars one day. Because bear in mind, the first people to go to Mars will not be astronauts. They'll send people like me. They won't waste money on astronauts, because the first people who go to Mars won't come back, and they'll have to survive pretty much like we survive on polar journeys with virtually nothing. So we were proud to test out that technology. 600 miles to go. Imagine father and son together. This was fantastic. So exciting, because I think it's really important that our generation engages with young people and their generation, because we can't have people working in two areas. We have to actually have one team, one mission, because whether you believe it or not, your mission to green your fleet isn't just for business. It's for the survival of our planet and people. And we have to join together on that mission. And this was great, except after 300 miles out of 600 miles, disaster strikes. My left hip starts to disintegrate inside the ball and socket, and it's really painful. And I can take pain, but I couldn't sleep. And if you don't sleep, you can't recover. And I was starting to slow down the rest of the team. So really, I failed in just about everything in life, by the way. But I never failed to get to the pole when I said I'd get there. But I have to now turn back. I have to go back to base camp, leaving Barney and his two companions to fight on to the South Pole. Imagine leaving your son at the age 23 to keep going. This was not the best day of my life, I have to say. But Barney said, I've got this, Dad. And he and his two companions would forge on another 300 nautical miles to the pole. He lost part of his toe, but he was willing to take that on. And I managed to fly in to the South Pole, not to celebrate anything to do with me, but to celebrate his achievement. They made it the first ever renewable energy expedition to any pole. It's time that my generation, as quickly as we can, pass on and empower the next generation into solutions. So proud of what they did. However, as anybody who knows me, I was not going to look at a map of Antarctica and think there were just 300 miles to go. So I had a new hip put in, and this time last year went back to exactly where I was flown out, and Barney carried on to complete those last 300 nautical miles to the pole and finish the job. And I wanted to have the best people possible, and I was so lucky to persuade Johanna and Katinka from Norway and Sweden, the top polar explorers in the world, to lead me to finish this mission off, to complete the journey to the South Geographic Pole. And we were joined by Kyle, our incredible cameraman from Norway. So 4 of us would forge on to the South Pole, finish those miles, but again, always testing out renewable energy. Because remember, if we're using more renewable energy in the real world, no one's going to exploit Antarctica. So think about this, talk about innovation. I would have jet aviation fuel made from the CO2, the dirt that we put into the atmosphere through our emissions. A company in Switzerland sucks out that CO2 and makes it into jet fuel. At the moment, yes, it's not to scale, but imagine the future that as we put emissions out into the air, bang, we can suck them back and make clean, renewable fuel. We would test that out on this journey, and this was fantastic. I've never, ever before this moment enjoyed one day of polar travel, but under the leadership of Katinka and Johanna, I understood how it was possible to actually enjoy this journey. My hip was strong and we were gliding across the ice. It was just incredible. Got 97 miles from the South Pole, and you can almost see it, feel it, you've done it. And I took my focus, as Paul mentioned, very focused person, but I forgot my focus. And I was thinking about reaching the South Pole, how I'd have a bath, how I'd have something really nice to eat. And while I was thinking of that, I stepped out of the tent, fell over very badly on my brand new hip, and the hip blew out of its socket. And I was left lying in the snow, unable to move. I have to admit, crying. I felt very, very sorry for myself. 97 miles only to go. And lying there, you don't just go to the South Pole, ladies and gentlemen. It costs at least $500,000 in sponsorship raising to go back and finish a journey. You don't just say, oh, well, I'll go back next week. So I thought to myself, I can't do this again. And I got flown to the South Pole, had my hip put back in. I couldn't complete the journey, and it just felt so terrible. And I came back home, and as Paul and I were talking about earlier, my business collapsed, COVID arrived. And to be honest with you, for the first time in my life, I was feeling really sorry for myself. And I thought, hang on, what are you really made of here, Rob? You talk about determination, focus, delivery on your word, but, you seem to be failing. So I thought, damn it. Okay. So I had a few more nuts and bolts put back into my hip. And next year, I will go back and finish those 97 miles to the South Geographic Pole. And I thought, well, possibly a bit boring just for the old Englishman to go and put a flag in at the South Pole. So I've pulled together an incredible team of wounded veterans, women and men from all different backgrounds, race, color, and creed. And we will go, these wounded veterans who've suffered loss of limb through war, and we will do those 97 miles together. Because I believe we need right now lots of great stories, not mine, but they've got great stories of resilience and courage. And for me personally, they lost their limbs in war. And war, ladies and gentlemen, should never, ever darken the doors of the Antarctic continent. And I hope you don't mind me calling it the Undaunted Expedition. I feel that we are, for once, undaunted. And I'm now back to shocking Americans, something I enjoy. I live in California and I pull these rubber tires up and down hills in California. I won't go into details of what people say to me, but basically I wear earphones and pretend I'm Russian because honestly, what people say to me isn't really worth repeating. They wonder what the hell's going on, but getting fit and strong to join the veterans team next year to finish this job. And in March next year, we've got an expedition going to Antarctica for business women, businessmen, young people, again, marking that 20 years to go until 2041. And I'm very proud and happy and very grateful that Toyota have made today's presentation for us all possible. And I'm delighted to say that I helped launch the most extraordinary car called the Mirai, a hydrogen vehicle in the United States of America, in California. Years and years ago, anybody listening from Toyota, I had a Prius car. And I had no idea what Prius meant. And what Prius means is basically towards. And Mirai means the future. So any Toyota could think over like 25 years to have two cars towards the future. And what a vehicle it was to run around California, to go to the, as we would say in America, to the gas station and actually fill up with hydrogen. And guess what? You could put a cup over the exhaust pipe and have a drink of water. It was that clean, incredible technology. And Toyota, are leading the way for the future of emissions in so many ways. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have 20 years to go until that magic year 2041. And I hope if you remember anything from my presentation, please remember 20 years' time, let's make sure we have the sense to leave Antarctica alone. And between the year 2024 and 2035, we will be embarking on yet another sea voyage around the world to inspire people on the whole use of renewable energy, get them all ready to make sure that we have the sense to leave Antarctica alone. And we'll be testing all kinds of different types of technology yet again on our yacht. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's been my honor and privilege to tell you our story. I've learned so many lessons in life. My life has been not full of really much success, but somehow we, not me, managed to get through and deliver on the missions that we talked about doing. So I wish you all the very, very best of luck. Paul, thank you so much and your team for organizing. And thanks, Louis, for introducing me to Fleet Forum. Good luck to you all and stay disciplined because we'll only get rid of this COVID thing if we keep disciplined. Thank you very much indeed.
Great. Thank you, Robert. What an incredible story. What an incredible story. Keep disciplined. While you've been talking, Robert, we've had a few questions put into us from the audience, from the people listening to your extraordinary story. So let me just ask you some of these questions. How can I implement sustainability actions when my organization is not behind it? How do we move from paying lip service?
I think that it's often very, very hard to take on board, especially for people, perhaps in the USA, in the UK or the Netherlands, to realize that often companies and nations have other priorities than sustainability. Survival is pretty much on the list for a lot of countries. So a lot of people still, and possibly quite rightly, don't have sustainability high on the list. I think that times, however, have changed. And I think for any business, sustainability, the mission towards greening fleets, is going to become something that not only is a benefit for the business on fuel use, price of running vehicles, price of running fleets. I think that's beginning to start to make financial sense to do it. I think the other thing is to be a leader. And let me answer that question bluntly. That 30 years ago, I was talking exactly the same things I'm talking about now. Mm-hmm. And people would say, Rob, you're a green activist, environmental activist, you're against industry and business. And I was saying exactly what I'm saying today to you all. So I think for people, you've got to put a good business case first and foremost as to why, greening the fleets, putting sustainability high on the list. You've got to put a good business case together for it. That's key. And I think also yourself, if it's possible for you yourself to show some leadership towards that, people will say, hey, if they're doing it, maybe I can do it. Give you a good example. My son and I lived for a long time in Cairns, far north Queensland in Australia. And I remember very clearly one of the taxi companies there, one guy said, look, I'm going to get a Toyota Prius. And, you can imagine in Australia, he was laughed at, called all types of things I won't go into at the moment. But he showed by using, a Prius, electric and hybrid, that he could save, thousands of dollars every year. And guess what? Every single taxi in the city of Cairns now is either electric or hybrid. Mm-hmm. So I think business talks, passion, and you showing leadership towards other people will start to turn the dial in your direction. But it will take time if people aren't listening.
Well, our participants in the Fleet Forum conference have been saying that green is really important to them. So you're saying lean is green, green is lean, leading by example, which is what you've demonstrated. But we have another question here, just one question to wrap up, Robert, before we continue. You have such a great experience. What would you recommend to organizations who really want to start addressing sustainability and taking it seriously?
I think that it's like everything. For example, safety is not a special issue in a company. Safety is part of the business because if you don't get safety right, something really bad is going to happen to the company. And safety is a huge issue in your business, but it's part of the business. It's not some separate thing. So my advice is that sustainability must become part of the business, not some separate thing where people are saying, oh, well, we've got to be sustainable. It's got to become part of the business, just like safety is. And then people will accept it more. I think small steps to begin with. I think people get far too excited and try and change everything and fail. Small steps in the right direction. And as Paul said at the beginning, learning from each of those small steps for mistakes made or things that have happened right. And I think that for leaders, I end on this, is that it's no good launching some big sustainability mission statement for the fleet and then expecting everybody just to follow that and be inspired by that. A leader must actually show sustainable inspiration, revisit and see how that mission towards sustainability is going, give people recognition within the company, financial or otherwise, for those people going the extra step. Make it part of the business, not something separate. And I wish you all the very best of luck on that mission.
Robert, thank you very much. We've just had one little final comment from Andreas. I'm not sure it's a question, but when I watch the news, I sometimes lose faith that we as humanity can still turn the tide. What one person can do is so little compared with what actually needs to be done. But a journey always needs to begin with a first step. So I really hope, Robert, that your speech to us, your talk to us today has encouraged many of us to take that very first step.
Well, Andreas, thanks for that. And good luck to you all. Take care of yourselves, stay disciplined, and wish you luck. Okay, good luck. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Wow, what a story. What a story. There's such a bunch of words that we could pull out of this. Faith, trust, determination, guts. I don't know what other word to think of. Yes, we're talking about sustainability, but what drive to deliver that? So as we come to the sort of conclusion of today with this truly inspirational man, what I would just like to ask you to do, last action of the day, is just in your Slido, just write one word, just one word that describes your feeling about today's proceedings. Not just what Robert has talked about with us just now, but throughout the day, the sessions you've been in, the information you've heard, the networking you've been involved in, the what you've discovered, and so on. So please pick a word, one word, put it into Slido, and as they come in, hopefully we can put those into a word cloud, from which I hope we can extract the essence of what today has been for you with this huge group of people who have been participating from all over the world. So give us the feedback, give us those words, and come back to us. Here we're coming in now. We're just beginning to see some of these words. I'm not sure that's a long word. Oh, just one point, actually. Apart from the internet problem, keep writing those words. We're going to keep putting them in. But regarding this specific point on the internet, we are aware that there have been a number of challenges. Our technical wizards have been addressing that. They've come up with a number of solutions, which I think for those of you who are operating with lower bandwidths than is ideal will find that the proceedings tomorrow will probably be flowing better. So, stay with us, keep the faith. These guys really know what they're doing on the technology side, and we'll ask them, or they will make sure that your connectivity improves for the sessions tomorrow. So we're seeing, great we've seen great a few times, educative, useful, wonderful, yes. Keep them coming. We'll put these together. As I say, they will appear sustainability, sustainable transport. This is so key. I mean, it's interesting what Robert is talking about, because again, many of the things he totally underpin and agree and are aligned with philosophy of Fleet Forum. He just talked about safety. He talked about sustainability, and he was saying that lean is effectively green. These are the messages that we have been talking about over the years: cost efficiency, safety, sustainability. This is the real philosophy of what Fleet Forum is about and has been through all of our conferences. So, okay, we still see some more words. We'll put these together in a word cloud. As I say, we see the network glitches. Mentioned that we're going to be addressing it. What we will do is we're going to wrap up now. What we'd like you to do is keep using we keep using the network, the networking tool in the platform. That will remain on for some time. We as a group here in the studio, we are going to continue our networking after the session closes. We would very much like you to continue doing so as well. Keep that networking, have chats, make connections with the other people who are participating all the way around the world. Now, just want to bring your attention to one of the very interesting and exciting parts of the annual Fleet Forum conference, which is the Best Transport Achievement Award. This is, we look around, we ask different organizations to submit projects that they've conducted throughout the year for consideration to be nominated, to nominate and then to put to a vote for the Best Transport Achievement Award. And we've had some really interesting projects over time. And so we'll be having that session tomorrow. You, as the participants, will be able to vote on which one you feel is the best achievement. So what we'll do is we'll actually talk to a previous award winner. We will then look at the synopsis of the different projects that have been nominated for this year. And then you, as the participants, will make the choice, you will select, and you will vote for that Transport Achievement Award. So that takes place in the afternoon tomorrow. So from that, I think we're going to wrap up today. Thank you very much. Really understand that we've been monitoring very closely the internet connectivity. We have identified problems. We are doing our best to address them, or at least our technical wizards are. But as I say, please, networking platform is remaining open. We very much request, hope, and really think that it would have a great benefit if you can just continue the conversation once we go off air. So thanks very much. So many people, so many countries. Wonderful to have you. And please come and join us tomorrow. Thank you. Bye-bye.